Time now for the big story. Pope Francis, the first Latin American pontiff in nearly 1,300 years, passed away on Easter Monday at the age of 88 due to a stroke and heart failure. Tributes have been pouring in globally, with mourners honoring him in churches worldwide. U.S. President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will attend his funeral in Rome. Now, following a period of mourning, cardinals under 80 years of age will convene to elect the next pope, a process typically taking 2 to 3 weeks. And if you were listening earlier, I did play you a snippet of what it entails in this conclave for the election of a new pope. This morning, we're pleased to be joined by well-known sociologist and Roman Catholic Deacon Peter Espeut as my very special guest in the Big Story segment. Good morning, Deacon Espeut. How are you today?
Morning, Richard B. Morning to your listeners. Quite well, thank you.
So glad that you could join us. Sad times for especially members of the Catholic Church on the passing of Pope Francis.
Thank you. Yes, it is a sad time. Not completely unexpected. Once Pope Francis went into hospital, we started to hold our breath. Mm-hmm. You might know that Pope Francis has only one lung.
Yes.
He had one lung removed when he was quite young. And so when you hear that his problem is pneumonia, mm-hmm. One lung and pneumonia, that's pretty serious. And of course, he was walking around, or I shouldn't say walking, he was pushed around in a wheelchair with oxygen attached to his face. So obviously things were not going well. But then when he turned up on Easter Sunday in public without the breathing tube, you thought that he had turned a corner, you know? Mm-hmm. So the next morning when you hear that he has died, it did come as a bit of a shock, yes. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. I thought to myself, having seen him making a short appearance on Easter Sunday. Now, Deacon Espeut, it seems most people will agree that Pope Francis kind of changed things up quite a bit as far as the running of the church and at the Vatican is concerned. What were some of the most significant reforms or initiatives that spring to your mind in terms of what Pope Francis did during his papacy?
Quite a few. But before I answer that, let me point out that the change did not start with Pope Francis. Once you saw Pope John Paul II, a Polish pope, he was the first pope in a long time who was not from Europe. Not from Italy. He was a German. He was a Pole. And then Pope Benedict from Germany. Mm-hmm. And so now Pope Francis from Argentina. So obviously the electors, the cardinal electors, knew that the church needed a change. We were dominated by Italian popes for a very, very long time. In the early days of the church, we had popes from Africa. And you said that he's the first pope from South America in 1,700 years. Strictly what I think you meant to say was the first pope outside of Europe for 1,700 years. Prior to him, it would have been the African popes, you know. Mm-hmm. So it's not just Pope Francis who is bringing a change. It's quite clear that the cardinal electors, the 80 or so voters who vote in the Pope, realized that the church needed a change. And certainly John Paul II was a breath of fresh air. Ratzinger, the German who became Pope Benedict, brought doctrinal orthodoxy. And then, of course, he took the unprecedented step of resigning. That had not happened in centuries also. Mm-hmm. And so Pope Francis comes along, the first pope from the south and from the west, from the New World. And so you would expect changes. And indeed so. Before he became pope, you know, Cardinal Bergoglio, as he was the head of the bishops from the Latin American region. Central, South America, and the Caribbean.
Yes.
And he presided over a conference in Aparecida in Brazil, which came up with a wonderful document which pointed the way for the church in Latin America to grow. So when he becomes Pope, he didn't start from scratch. He started implementing as Pope what the Latin American bishops under his leadership had started to implement before. And what it basically has to do with inclusiveness. It's not that sin now becomes good. What is sin is still sin. But we recognize that Jesus came to save sinners. He didn't come for the righteous. And so what Pope Francis began to do was to reach out to sinners, to persons on the margin, persons who were forgotten. The most controversial reaching out that he did, of course, was to the LGBT community. And he never said that being gay or being homosexual was okay, was acceptable, was good, he never said that. What he said is that the church must be a hospital for the sick, so that people who are sinners are welcome. There's nobody else in the church except sinners. Because everybody has sinned. Even St. Paul tells us that all have sinned and have fallen short of the mark. So why pick some sinners and welcome them and reject other sinners? No. So what Pope Francis started out with was this is about love and accepting marginalized people into the church. And he told us clergy that we must smell like the sheep. In other words, you can't preside over the church from an ivory tower or from your residence insulated from the world. You have to get out of your comfort zone and go among the sheep so that you smell like the sheep. Because a very captivating image that he put forward to the world back pretty early after he became Pope.
Yes.
Go ahead. So you could begin to see that from that point, he was telling the clergy, the bishops, the priests, the deacons like myself, to get dirty, get down and dirty, and get involved with the people who are faced with struggles of all kinds and fall into sin. And our goal, like Jesus, is to try and bring them back into the fold.
Are you of the view that he was always promoting a sort of interfaith dialogue and understanding even within the church?
Well, again, he would not be particular in doing that. From Pope John the 23rd, Pope Paul the 6th coming right up. All the popes have, in recent years, been promoting interfaith dialogue. And certainly he took it to the extreme, where others, spoke kind words, but he actually went to the Muslims, he went to the Orthodox, and he interacted very closely with those who were not Catholic and some who were not Christian. And but I don't want you to think that Pope Francis is the first pope to do that. No, that's certainly not the case.
Right.
And we here in Jamaica have had a strong tradition of interfaith dialogue. Archbishop McElhaney, who came to Jamaica in 1950, was the first bishop, I think, in many hundreds of years to address a Jewish synagogue. He went into the Duke Street synagogue and at their invitation and spoke. So we here in Jamaica have led the world in that. The Jamaica Council of Churches is one of only 2 councils of churches in the world where the Catholic Church is a foundation member. In other ecumenical groups, the Catholic Church comes in later, after it has been formed and running. But the Catholic Church is a foundation member of the Jamaica Council of Churches. I mean, you may take it as ordinary, But this is the only one other place in the world, in Southeast Asia, where the Catholic Church has been a foundation member of an ecumenical group like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the fact that Pope Francis would be strong on interfaith dialogue is true, but he's continuing the work of others before him, and rightly so.
Okay. Now, one of the other features about Pope Francis, which a lot of people talk about, is his humility and almost simplicity in terms of how he carried himself, even the attire that he wore, how he moved around, not necessarily in bulletproof vehicles, but in a chariot wide in the open. These are some of the things that I believe made him resonate with the Catholics, and even non-Catholics alike. Would you agree with that? Definitely.
Again, he didn't start that as Pope. I no doubt the bishops, when they were looking to elect somebody, knew this about him and elected him because of this personality trait that he has. As Archbishop in Buenos Aires, he would often take the bus with people and rub shoulders with the people. He indeed smelled like the sheep in Argentina. What he was asking us to do, he had already done and was prepared to do, you know. Mm-hmm. He also, when he went to the papal election, the conclave, 12 years ago, he took the bus to the conclave and he took the bus back to his hotel, and he paid his bill himself.
Really?
Usually, you know, you give that to one your ADC or your assistant, but he did it himself, carrying his luggage. They said, "No, Holy Father, let us go." In fact, I am told that after he was elected Pope, he wanted to come out on the balcony and accept the congratulations of the crowd, wearing street clothes. They told him, "No, Holy Father, you can't do that." And so, under pressure, he put on his white garment and went out to do it. Mm-hmm. So he is definitely quite a humble person. He chose not to live in the papal palace, but he lived in the Casa Santa Marta, which is a guest house in the Vatican for visiting people. So he basically lived in a room in the guest hostel. And bishops have told me who have gone to Rome, who go into that same guest house, so that when they go down to breakfast and lunch, he's there having breakfast and lunch with everybody. Mm. No, that is unheard of. The Pope has his own apartment, his own source of food, and so he eats by himself or with whoever he wants. But Pope Francis was not like that. And of course, at Holy Thursday, when we have the washing of the feet, he became famous because he would wash the feet of prisoners in the prison. Usually, in fact, church law said that it has to be 12 men. But all of a sudden, he's washing the feet of women. So out went that rule. And then the next thing you hear is that he goes in an AIDS hospice and he's washing the feet of people with AIDS and kissing their feet. So this sends a tremendous signal to the world that this man is not, there's no barrier between him and his flock. Again, I'll just repeat his own expression. He smelled of his sheep. Mm-hmm. And that certainly endeared him to many. And he never came to Jamaica, as you know. His predecessor did. Yes. JP too. But he blessed the Caribbean in a very special way, because the retired Archbishop of St. Lucia, Kelvin Felix, he elevated him to be a cardinal. The English-speaking Caribbean has never had a cardinal before. And when the Holy Father appointed Archbishop Felix to be a cardinal, what it showed is that the Catholic Church in the Caribbean counted. We were noticed. Mm-hmm. And of course, Cardinal Felix has died, so he will not take part in the election.
In the conclave.
But the fact is that one of our own someone I knew quite well personally, became cardinal from the Caribbean.
Yes.
And so we realized that the Catholic Church in the Caribbean had arrived.
I want to wrap, but just before you go, Deacon Espeut, I played a clip earlier of what goes on in terms of the election, the conclave, and right down to the point where the smoke is white.
The white smoke, yeah.
The white smoke coming out of the Vatican at St. Peter's Square. Do you get a sense that there is any form of a front runner at this time, as they in a few weeks will be determining the new pope? And do you get a sense that it will be more of continuity or changing of course as far as the Catholic Church is concerned?
But this is the question, because, I didn't get a chance to give more examples of new things that this Pope had introduced. The big one is synodality. Synodality is a new way of being church. It comes from the Greek word syn, which means with, and hodos, which means way or journey. So basically we are journeying together, we are walking together. And so everybody in the church, not just the bishops, but the bishops, the priests, the deacons, but not just the clergy, the laity as well, are all on this journey together. And so for the first time, he holds a synod in Rome at which not just bishops attend, but priests and deacons and women. And so that was a new thing. Now, of course, this sparked a whole heap of controversy. And the right wing of the church, the conservative element, fought against him tremendously. And even in death, they are still attacking him. I read some stuff this morning, Lord have mercy. But the point is this: he has named so many cardinals in his time that it is hopeful that one of those that is of like mind will be elected to replace him. The Holy Spirit will guide the process. Often when a really progressive pope is elected, a backward one follows that. But in this particular case where the cardinal electors, most of them have been chosen by him, that is unlikely. It's likely that someone is going to be selected who will carry forward his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
As to who the front runners are, of course, the Catholic press has rushed to publish lists. I read a few lists. Nobody close to us. It's interesting, next month, the bishops of the Caribbean are scheduled to meet here in Jamaica. And one of the cardinals from Rome is supposed to come and address the meeting. That cardinal, Cardinal Tagle, is one of those whose name is being called. Of course, I don't know if that meeting is going to take place when it is supposed to take place. Because of the death of Pope Francis, we wait to hear what the bishops say.
Mm-hmm.
But it is unlikely that Cardinal Tagle will come because, of course, the conclave, it may even, may be running at that time. But there's really no one that we can put our fingers on who, because it's not something that people fight for, as much as being Pope is a position of great power. It's also a position of great challenge and great suffering. And in recent decades, I don't think people are rushing to get to be Pope.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have my finger on who are the front runners. Mm-hmm. Right at this moment.
Right. Time will tell, and we will find out, no doubt, in a few weeks from now.
I appreciate your interest in this, and thank you.
Yes.
For inviting me to come.
No worries. It's been my pleasure. Thank you. You've shed a lot of light on the situation, and again, may the Pope's may he rest in peace. And thank you so much for the information you shared, Deacon Espeut. Have a good day.
Bless you. Bless you. You too.